Welcome to the first episode of the Schlehlein Experience. I'm your host, Schlehlein. My co-host to the right, Brandon Eckel, and we're here with a very special guest, the first graduate of Dan Patrick University at Full Sail, current celebrity interviewer, and you can watch him live on MYNBC 5 News. This is Tyler Boronski. Tyler, thanks for taking the time today.
Chris, Brandon, thanks for having me on. And I just found out moments ago I'm your first ever guest on the podcast, so I'm honored and appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, I can kind of start it off. We wanted to give a little background to the listeners. So could you maybe just provide a little context of the, kind of your background, what kind of sparked your interest in, being a news anchor, journalist, all those?
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to keep it short as much as I can. Basically, I grew up in Connecticut near a minor league baseball team. Went to a lot of games growing up. Was into autographs. That's how I went to the games at first. I was just like, I want to get autographs. So got to know some of the players from that. But then I, like a lot of sports fans, you're watching ESPN, you're watching MLB Network. I see the reporters out in the field talking one-on-one with these guys. I'm like, shoot, I want to do that one day too. And then you kind of build a rapport with some of these players. So I was like, all right, let me ask someone. My first ever interview was this guy named Luis Lopez, played in the big leagues for the Blue Jays and Expos for a little bit. I'm like, would I be able to interview you for 5 minutes? And he said, yeah. So was able to work that out. And once I did that interview with Luis, that made I was like, this is amazing. This is like the autograph experience times 100. Because when you're getting autographs, it's like you get that 10 seconds with a player, and that's so fun. But like the interview, and I got that one-on-one time with them. I can ask them whatever I want. All of them have interesting careers, at least interesting to me. So that really just sparked the interest. And then all of high school, this was in 9th grade. All of high school, I was basically living at different minor league ballparks. And I would even travel to Connecticut. I would go to New York. I would go to New Jersey. I would go to Pennsylvania. Sometimes during the week too. So I would finish school and then I would go to a ballpark. And the bigger trips I would do on the weekend, Pennsylvania and stuff. But yeah, I just had so much fun doing it. And then once I knew, okay, it's senior year of high school, I got to think of a college to go to. What do I want to study? I knew about Full Sail for a while now, just because of their reputation in the entertainment industry. But they didn't have the broadcasting program yet until this is a fun story I always like to tell people. I did a behind the scenes tour at Full Sail for their sports marketing program. Again, not exactly what I want to do, but something. But when I was there, I ran into the president of Full Sail, Gary Jones, and I was telling him what I want to do. And he's like, this is not out there yet, but probably by the time you would start at Full Sail, sometime during your time at Full Sail, we're going to begin a broadcasting program. And I was like, all right, that's interesting to know. So that kind of did sway my decision to go to Full Sail. And then it's once I got to Full Sail, I didn't know it was Dan Patrick yet. This is how small the world is. Mm-hmm. I find out while I'm at Full Sail that's going to be called the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. I grew up with Dan's daughter, because Dan lives in Connecticut as well, going to the same small private school in Connecticut. I was like, man, this is fate in a way. That this Dan, I've known Dan since I was little. Not super well, but I've been to their house, a little bit. So then it just worked out, man, like that. It's all right, I did at Full Sail, you get your bachelor's degree in 20 months. I did that. Really, it's like a trade school, focus really specific in the media industry. I feel that got me a lot better. And then from there went to NESN, and then did 2 years in NESN and kind of a hybrid role. And then finally got that first full-time on-air position with MBC 5, which is where I'm at now. And I'm doing something different in news, which was my choice to choose a news thing over sports for the time being. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's been a crazy journey. It's a lot has happened, but I also feel I'm in the beginning still of my career too. So it's kind of a weird balance from that perspective. But yeah, it's been a fun ride.
For sure. And so what was it kind of like starting off? I know you said they didn't really have the broadcasting school necessarily up and running. So did you find it difficult at all? At the start, hey, this is kind of a new thing, we're trying to work through the curriculum type thing, or was it pretty smooth from the start? How did that work?
No, that's a great question because it was that, like, the fact I was part of the first class, like, they always said, like, we're the guinea pigs. So, like, these teachers, like, they didn't even have all the instructors hired yet for, like, because the way Full Sail works is, like, you go to a class for, like, a month. So I might go to, like, an interviewing class for a month. I might go to advanced reporting class for a month. I might go to a more behind the scenes, like, production oriented class for a month. And there's a new teacher for each month, but they didn't have everyone like hired yet. So they were still like kind of building it out while I was going. So it's like, yeah, I have my first few months, but it's like, all right, in month 10, like they don't have the teacher yet. So you were taking a risk for sure. But I had a lot of faith in the personnel that they did have. Gus Ramsey, who's the program director, he's like the day-to-day. He was at ESPN for forever as one of the lead producers for SportsCenter. And then each teacher I had industry experience. And I kind of just like the way Full Sail does things in terms of like, it's not very like a traditional school. It's like you have people that have worked in the industry or like are still working in the industry, but like are teaching on the side as well. Some of them now are full-time, like just teaching, but like, I don't know. It's just, they're kind of giving you like the blueprint to like how this industry works, like the spark notes in a sense from that perspective. So I don't know. I just really enjoyed my time there, and yeah, it was taking a risk. But one last part is they asked for our feedback a lot because it was myself and 4 other kids as part of the first 5. So I feel like now we were able to give a lot of like our thoughts and feedback that hopefully is helping the program now. For the kids moving forward, because their program is like really big now. Like they got just so many kids and a lot of kids now in the industry, which is great to see. So hopefully the things we told them, translate to a better product at the Dan Patrick School now.
Wow. I find it kind of crazy that you guys were the guinea pigs and that they just kind of said, Tyler, gang, we're just going to go into this and you guys are just going to have to adapt on the fly. And I just wonder for you, like, like given that, like, you were on YouTube, you were doing celebrity interviews, you were doing interviews with these players, like what kind of skills did you have beforehand that kind of translated? And what was like the learning curve as far as like behind the scenes and those other aspects?
That's another good question. I think the things I took away from doing the minor league baseball interviews beforehand is definitely like, just like the hustle of it and like dealing with like adults at a young age, if that makes sense. Like because you're talking like PR people and like media relations. So, and just like kind of understanding that process. That's probably the biggest takeaway like I got from doing minor league baseball stuff. Skill wise, none of those interviews like were good. Like if I look back now, like none of them are good at all. But it's like, all right, I had the ambition to do it, and like that process of like setting it up and like what it's like working with professional athletes, that's probably my biggest takeaway. But I definitely need like help skill set wise, and that's what the Dan Patrick School was able to offer me and help me with. And like I said, all my teachers were people that were on-air talents in the past, or they did their respective profession for a long period of time. So I definitely took a lot from the Dan Patrick stuff, even though I did the YouTube stuff prior. Like I really needed to like develop my skill set and like hone my craft. And I feel like they definitely made me more confident on air, and just so much things. It's hard to like run down through everything, but it was definitely like I needed to go there to get better, and I feel like I did.
Can you touch on real quick? So with your first interview with Luis Lopez, were you credentialed at the time, or where was it?
Yeah, I did get credentials. It was in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is like where I'm from. So that was like my main, where I did like a lot of my interviews. So yeah, I did ask the PR guys if I could do an interview, and they said yes. That one was during their like one of their spring training games too, I remember. So it wasn't even like I still got credentialed later for the regular season games, but like I do remember it was like a more laid back environment, just because it was like they were playing some like pro like amateur team. They weren't even playing like another professional team. I remember it was like the Milford Hunters. This is like getting very niche, but just like I don't know. It was very laid back that day, but yeah, that's how I did get credentialed for that.
So
But
how
I
did
was
you?
around the ball. It's the last thing I would add. It's like I was around the ballpark, so it's like they kind of knew who I was, like as like a fan. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was gonna ask how that, I know there's probably a lot to it, but for somebody, even us, we've talked about a few minor leaguers that, we're fans of. We're pretty close being from, Wisconsin, going up to Appleton, access to, Brewers minor league guys. So what was kind of the approach? I know you said, being around the ballpark, they already knew you, but how do you, with setting up the interview, like, did you interview him after the game? Did you get him beforehand, just kind of standing talking to him? How did that part of it kind of work?
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember that specific example, but the way I can relate this is, after Bridgeport, like I was trying to get credentialed around the Atlantic League as a whole. So I was like to go to New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So then I was like pitching to different PR
Mhm.
people for the first time that I didn't quite know or quite have the same personal, like experience with. Um, so I think, well, one thing I will say is I think especially like minor league baseball, like they are more acceptive now of like not TV media outlets. Like I feel like people are more acceptive of like podcasts and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it just goes back to like um, I'm trying to think the best way to put this. It's just like your reputation at the end of the day. So like the content, like if you pitch who you are, what your outlet's all about, and then show them some previous work you've done, and hopefully they can tell like you take your job seriously, or you take what you're doing seriously, even if it's not your full-time job. So I think that was the thing when I was pitching to the other outlets, even though I was like in high school or 9th and 10th grade. It's like I was still like treating it very like professionally and seriously, and I wasn't wasting these players' times. Like I was trying to ask like legit questions at the time. So even though I wasn't really a big outlet by any means on my own. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I have like a
Yeah.
train. I live next to a train station, so it always goes off. But the biggest thing is just like trying to be a professional. I always remember this one beat reporter. Like one of my first interviews, I was like wearing like some normal T-shirt and like a hat, and he's like, "You want them to take you seriously at the end of the day. So try to look the part." And I always remember he told me that. And so like I would wear like normal like dress down shirts and just try to look professional. And hopefully, you're not going to get a yes every time, but hopefully some of these outlets will take you seriously and they know you're trying and they know you're trying to take it seriously. And then the snowball effect can start from there. So it is starting small, and minor league baseball is a good example and a good place to start. But that's what I would say. A little bit of a ramble of an answer, but hopefully that helps.
No, that's great. It's good insight, especially the part of, like you said, dressing the part and just showing them that, I'm not, not just a guy or some kid, trying to ask random questions. We're trying to use it to elevate ourselves or, even help out the player, promote themselves. So
Definitely. And then I would even add to that, and it's like it really does add up quick because once you get a few guys and maybe your reputation grows within that league, or like guys know each other. Like it's such a small world, whether you do sports, entertainment, news, I've learned. Like so your reputation, like you can have a resume of people like real quick, and then you can start like name dropping to these like outlets and be like, oh yeah, I've interviewed this person before, or like I know the person I want to interview, they're buddies with someone that I'm close with. So and then that makes it easier because people always like to know like, okay, you're in the inner circle, whatever that inner circle is.
yeah.
And that does start quick.
I think adding on to that, I guess, how did you start to like build your repertoire from you went from, sports and interviewing a lot of players. And like, I know you still do some of that now, but I saw a lot of your work is like celebrity based. How did you kind of make that transition to like, want to interview more celebrities rather than athletes?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I moved to Orlando for Full Sail, something unique about being there, I grew up in like Bridgeport, Connecticut, that area, very small city. And then you go to Orlando and there's just like a wide range of opportunities and not just sports. So you have all these conventions nearby where I live. And even like I was doing some like web interviews too, as well. Not on like I would do like Skype stuff. I'm trying to think the different platforms, but like Skype and things kind of similar to StreamYard, not StreamYard, but something similar. So, I was reaching out to people like actors and stuff on social media and doing stuff, and then starting to go to conventions because I've always liked entertainment as well. Like I've always kind of been someone that has just a lot of interest. Like, so that's why I do sports, I do entertainment, I'm doing news. And yeah, it's kind of just like starting from scratch as well. It's like you need to convince that first outlet, first like event or first person to talk to you. But once you start getting like a few people, then you can, name drop to these conventions. Like, hey, I've interviewed blah, 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 blah. And hopefully they take you seriously and they see your work. So, yeah, that's kind of how it started. But I think living in Orlando was like what inspired it, just because of the entertainment opportunities that were available there that definitely wouldn't be there where I was in Connecticut.
So kind of like autographs, like you're in it and it's almost like a thrill. It's a rush. Like you can't explain it unless you really do it and you really like it. Did you have the same kind of sentiment or the same kind of feeling when you were chasing these different media outlets or chasing these players? Like, hey, I just landed. Like one of my favorites from you was Lastings Village. I love Lastings Village. It's so random, but like, did you get a kind of rush from interviewing these guys or chasing down these outlets and getting credentialed?
Absolutely. I think that's what like I still love about it now. Like honestly, because yeah, sometimes it's like more set up and it's like great. Like, and then after like a good interview, and when it's a good interview, it's like, man, that's the best feeling ever. But sometimes at these like events, and even like at the ballpark too, you have to like chase down guys. Just because you have a credential doesn't like always mean like you have a guaranteed interview. And sometimes it is like waiting for guys, like I had one with like Chris Sale. When I was working at NESN a couple year or two ago, I'm trying to remember when, but like I had to like wait for him forever because Chris likes to just like, he has his whole like workout routine and like he jogs around the stadium forever and it's just a long process. So I had to like wait it out for him. But I finally got him. I had like a 5-minute conversation with Chris. And Chris is such a good interview. He's like really honest and like open and stuff. And it was just a really good interview. And I was just like, man, that felt good. But I also had to like work for that interview too to make it happen. So it's like a combo. It's like, sometimes you're chasing guys down and once you get them and you're like, oh man, even if it's a few questions, it's like, that's the best feeling. And then same thing, like if you have a set interview with someone and the conversation goes so well, that's awesome. So it's definitely like what keeps me going now. Like I still get that feeling and that kind of is like replicates the autograph feeling. But honestly, for me, like it's like even better than the autographs, like by a lot. So, but yeah, it's cool.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I was going to ask, unless you got another question, I was going to segue over because you mentioned acting. And I know that you were background actor in Stranger Things. So I had to ask about that. Obviously, popular TV show. I'm a big fan, watch the show. So could you maybe give a little info about how that came about? If that was, maybe them just looking for people in the area or, how that experience was for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with the reason why I pursued it in the first place is kind of to your earlier question, Chris, about the entertainment stuff. I was still starting like my entertainment interviews and trying to build my brand towards that direction and, build who I've interviewed and stuff. At that point, I had interviewed like a few people on Stranger Things, none of the main cast, but just some like, recurring characters, smaller people. But I really wanted to grow my name more in the entertainment world. Stranger Things was still really popular of a show then too. So I was thinking in my head, I was like, well, it would be interesting because I'm always thinking about like branding and stuff. Like it'd be interesting if I'm not only interviewing people on the show, but I'm also on the show as well, because that just makes you like super unique, like in the entertainment space as a whole. And the reason how I got connected is a girl that I interviewed that was also, she's an actor, but she was also a background actor on Stranger Things as well in like season 2. And she does like social media stuff. I knew she did it because I interviewed her as a background actor. She was a background actor. So I asked her basically like who to connect with for the show. And she got me connected with the right people. And then I went through the process for Stranger Things from there and submitting like headshots, submitting info. It was like a 4-round process to even get casted for Stranger Things, which is like unheard of because I've done extra stuff for like other projects. But it's like usually like hey, you fit what we're looking for, like you're good, no problem. But Stranger Things was like a legit process. And like I had to grow out my hair for like I couldn't cut my hair for like a super long amount of time because they want that 80s look.
Yeah.
So it's because I knew someone that was on the show in season 2, got me connected with the right people, and then I just went through the process. And then luckily I fit what they were looking for. You know, that part's out of my control, but luckily I fit what they wanted. And I was willing to go to Atlanta to do it because that's where it was. Or Gwinnett is technically where I filmed, but like the Atlanta area.
Mhm.
And did that for a week. They actually asked if I could do more, but like I didn't live in that area, so like I couldn't do some of the other scenes. But yeah, that was just such a unique week, man. That's like I will never forget that week. And you know your role as a background actor, like you're a background for a reason. Like that's what you're there for. But I'm like trying to just soak up the experience of like seeing how the production works. Stranger Things, one of my favorite shows too, at least back then.
Mhm.
And the cool part with when I was on set is like all the other extras there, I call them like professional extras because all of them had done stuff on other projects, which makes sense because they want people to like know how to operate on set, especially like a show like that. So it was kind of like cool, like interacting with the other extras and like hearing, okay, I did Hunger Games, what that set was like. I did this Marvel project, what that was like. So I was just like honestly just trying to soak it in and like just talk with people. And then yeah, just watching how they film the scenes was so cool. And even I did get to meet like all the main cast. So like I did get to chat with them a little bit, like all the kids and Joe Keery. I definitely talked to him a lot, and Maya Hawk. So just so unique. I filmed in the Starcourt Mall, which is in season 3. It's like one of the main locations, and
Yeah.
they like renovated this like basically deserted mall. Like half of it was open, but it's basically deserted. And they renovated the old food court and made it all 80s. And I was just like, wow, this is so cool. This is surreal to see in person. So yeah, just such a cool opportunity. And then like I try to leverage it moving forward. So I posted something the other day as a throwback because I saw they were filming season 5. It's like I ended up speaking at Tampa Bay Comic-Con about my Stranger Things experience. But that's because I pitched to Tampa Bay Comic-Con. I was like, hey, here's a unique conversation that you guys probably don't have at your Comic-Con. Like someone talking about being a background actor. Like you have the stars, but what's the background experience like? And, you know, because that's also more attainable for people too. Like
Mhm.
I'm not an actor. Like I'm not getting the acting business, but like I was able to pull that off, and you know others can too. So and I convinced them to like let me do a talk about it, and then just other like branding stuff like moving forward. But like I try to leverage the fact I was on Stranger Things, and like I said in the beginning, the fact I'm someone that interviews people on Stranger Things, but it was also on the show. It's just like it's unique. So yeah, try to maximize it, but very memorable experience for sure.
So at that press conference that you scratched and clawed and you got your way into that press conference, I know on your story you said it was like one of the best moments that you've had. I guess can you touch on like what kind of questions were people asking you, and did you think that your opinion like proved right, that like, hey, people want to actually hear this? Were people interested, locked in, or?
Yeah, a lot of that is kind of what you guys are like. How did I even get into doing it? How do you do it in the first place? And like I said, Stranger Things was like a very maybe they run things different than other productions, but I was like a lot of these extra castings are on Facebook. Like you can find them pretty open. It's just like if you fit what they're looking for, chances are like they're asking for a reason, so they need people. So like so people were just asking like more of the process. Some people were asking me like how much you get paid for it. I was like, I mean, it's good for like a day or like a week and stuff. I'm like not gonna make your full-time living off doing extra work. So it was just more questions related to that. But there was like so I was very surprised about this because I was the last panel of the day, and there were still like 50-ish people that showed up, all in all, which I don't know. For me, that was just more than I thought.
Yeah.
So and like I said, people come up afterwards and ask questions and stuff. Again, this is like a few years ago, so it's hard for me to fully remember, but I do remember people just asking like the process, and also like how which I don't know if I was fully qualified to answer, but like how maybe background acting could translate to full-time acting in the future. I do remember a kid asking me that, which what I would say to that again is you at least are networking with people there. And that's the thing. It's like you're in the room with the people. So you're not the star on this project, but you're in a room with people in your industry that you want to be connected with. And everyone knows everyone at the end of the day. So that's what I told them. I remember I was just like, maximize it. Don't be shy. Don't just sit there and like talk to people, because it's a limited amount of time you're there. So yeah.
So when you're in that moment, like, you know what they say, like you don't know you're in the glory days until it's already happened, it's already passed, right? Like so when you're there and you're trying to soak everything in, I guess like what are you taking away from that, and like how do you carry that with you, you know, like for the rest of your career? Like how do you still maximize that?
Yeah. I don't like to look at it like exactly like that. Like, okay, those were the glory days and this is, you know, it's bad now. But like I try to look at just like there's great moments from every stop I've been. And you know, everything's gonna be like if I'm not at NBC5 one day, like I'm probably gonna look back, I'll probably be posting stuff from, you know, this experience here and just be like, these were the fun moments from that. So I think every place, you know, has its like highs and lows. And there's good stuff to take out of every place. And you just I don't know, it's just part of my like career. It's part of my life. You know, this is my 4th place I've lived now. Like from Connecticut, have all those experiences in minor league baseball. Then Orlando with more stuff on YouTube, but like the Dan Patrick School is like my main memories. And then Boston with NESN and everything that came with that. And now here in Vermont with NBC5 and doing news and all the different stuff I'm doing here that I never thought I would do in a million years. Like if you asked me in those minor league baseball days, I never thought I'm going to like a Nikki Haley event, like to cover like a potential presidential candidate. So it's like, I don't know, it's just pros and cons with every place and every situation. But yeah, you just try to learn from every place.
For sure.
One other question, kind of going back to maybe the Full Sail or, you know, kind of your beginning interviews. I know you touched on, you know, you said some of them weren't as good at first or whatnot, but was there
None
kind
of
of
them were good, but
was there maybe it was you getting more comfortable or just developing your skills where you felt like, you know, the interviews started to improve, or, you know, like I said, just more confident with them, or, you know, when did that kind of turn?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it was when I got to Orlando, because I took a interviewing class, a specific interviewing class with Mike Tuck, worked in the Orlando market for forever as an on-air talent. And he basically like simplified like the foundation of like storytelling and like how to form questions. And it starts with like, if you form your questions with like who, what, why, when, and keep it open-ended, like more times than not, that's going to generate a good response out of someone. And then, you know, it gets more intricate, like how you ask certain questions, your tone, which is something I've learned a lot, like dealing with like Belichick over the years. Like my tone with how I ask certain questions is also almost as equally important. So there is a process to it, but I would say in Orlando, that's when I really like it sparked more. And I have that like in my head now moving forward. Like I try to ask open-ended questions. I try to ask questions that start with who, what, when, and just have the right tone with what I'm asking. And that's why I say, as great as the minor league baseball stuff was, I did not have that foundation in my head, and I needed that. And I was able to get that in Orlando, and that's definitely carried with me throughout my career.
So kind of given like your relationship like with Dan beforehand, you know, at least like you guys, like, you know, you knew each other and all that, like how often was Dan around, and like what kind of like lessons did like Dan personally teach you that you still like carry with you right now?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. I will say, yeah, it was a different dynamic, because I remember the first day I did like their commercial for the program. And so Dan came for that. And, you know, it was just a different conversation with him compared to the other kids, because the other kids, like, and again, like I look up to him too, like obviously. But those kids, it's their first time meeting him. So it's more like a fan moment. Where me, it's like, oh, how's Molly? How's this person? Blah blah blah. So it's kind of funny from that perspective. I remember seeing him. But like as far as lessons, like he came like 4 times a year on campus, plus doing some like Zoom stuff with us, like giving feedback on certain assignments. So you're talking to him like on a semi-frequent basis. It's not like he's there every day, but like he does come down to campus 4 times a year, and then you talk to him like on Zoom. There was also like a personal like email address or like a school email address they gave him, so that we were able to like send him stuff too, which was great. I would just say like the biggest thing he taught me was just simplifying everything. Like simplify how you write, simplify the moment. Because especially when you're new, like if you're doing like studio stuff, or even if you're out in the field. Honestly, out in the field is a better example, where you see like there's so many external factors like people around and like noise and stuff. But when you just have to simplify it's you and the camera, and like you're talking to one person. You can't think about if 100,000 people are watching, whatever you're talking about. Like you have to just really be locked in and just be focused on the moment and just simplify it. So that's something that always stuck out to me. And then like obviously he's like a goat with interviewing, which is like one aspect I really like, and it's the conversational aspect as well. So taking like those fundamentals that I mentioned earlier, but then how Dan's interviews are like 10-15 minutes long. It's making it still entertaining at the same time. So it's like it's always being informative and entertaining, and yeah, I don't know, like he's just such a good job making his interview so conversational, and like he's best buddies with his guests. I don't even know sometimes if he like some of them obviously he knows really well. Some of them I'm sure he's meeting for the first time, but it just flows so well, and that's something I'm want to strive towards, and he definitely instilled in us for sure.
You're right. His interviews do flow very well. I've been listening to him since I was in 6th grade, which I guess kind of dates me because it's like almost 10 years now, or 10 plus years, which is insane.
Yeah.
But Dan actually came out here for the Super Bowl last year because I'm in Arizona now. And so I called in a sick day for work. I had to go meet him. And I asked him this question. I'm going to ask you a similar question. So do you remember he had an interview with Kyler Murray?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And how it did not go as planned because Kyler was just kind of sitting there, and then his dad was like someone answering questions. What can you like name like an interview where like it was like, I know talking to Belichick, you probably have memories streaming through your head, but like can you name an interview that was tough and you didn't exactly it was a little awkward, you know how to take it, and like kind of how you bounce back from that, or your best tips to just move on, like as far as the interview?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of a specific. It's definitely happened like a similar scenario for sure. Like his Kyler thing. Maybe something will come to me while I answer this. But like, I think the biggest thing with that is like, Dan gave it a certain amount of time. He kept trying a few questions, but it takes two. It takes two to tango to make a good interview. And obviously, Kyler wasn't giving him anything and didn't want to talk about certain topics. And it's on you to decide if you want to pull it as the interviewer, kind of at a point you're wasting each other's time. So, and I hate wasting my own time. So like if someone really doesn't feel like answering questions, like I'm the one that can decide like, all right, hey, thanks for your time for these few minutes. Obviously it's not going to keep going, or we're not going to get anything out of this. So you can decide to pull it. But I was telling this isn't my interview. I remember a college student asking me, because he had interviewed Frank the Tank from Barstool.
Yeah.
And I've never interacted with this guy, but like I haven't heard amazing things. And he did interview him, and Frank the Tank was like doing the same thing, where like he wasn't answering anything. In fact, he wasn't even like paying attention. Like they were doing like a Zoom, like he was like watching TV and like answering the kid's questions, but not really. Like he was giving the kid like nothing. Now he ended up doing the interview for like still like a half hour. It was like kind of brutal to watch, but I was telling him afterwards, because he's asking me for some advice. I was like, that's on you after a while. Like I know he's well known and stuff, but I'm like, he's obviously not invested in doing the interview. He shouldn't have said yes in the first place if Frank the Tank, but like, okay, he is on the Zoom with you, but he's not really answering your questions. He's not really paying attention. like that's on you to decide. Okay, you know what? Let's just pull the plug on this. Obviously we're not going anywhere. So yeah, I think that's on you to decide as the interviewer. Dan did it with Kyler. Dan's done it before, even with like I remember I think he said Jason Giambi. He wanted to ask Giambi steroid related questions, and Giambi, I remember he said no, he didn't want to talk about steroids. Well, then you can decide as the interviewer, like, okay, I'm not going to do this interview then because I want to talk to you about these certain topics. So that's on you to decide. I've had that happen before. I'm really trying to think of something specific to give you guys. But like people ask you, hey, these are the topics I want, or what are the topics about? And I never like to give people specific questions, but maybe I'll give them a few topics. And they're like, I don't really want to touch on this. Well, I want to touch on this. So, if you really don't think you're going to be able to talk about this, then I don't need the interview, So, yeah, I don't know, but it does happen. But it's on you to decide, if someone really doesn't want to give you much.
For sure, man. I can just picture just being in those rooms, just kind of tense, and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna cut it. Thanks for your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm trying to, man. Yeah. Hopefully something will come to me by the end of this. I don't know, but yeah, it definitely happened. It definitely happened. I think a lot even now in my news job, I get that more because like I'm not doing like my YouTube stuff are like bigger conversations, but my news stuff like I'm asking very specific questions for like specific stories. So like if the angle I need from them, like they're not able to touch on or they don't want to talk about it, like I'm very quick to being like, okay, well I don't need the interview anymore. Because like I'm doing like 3 interviews a day for like these news packages, and it's like each voice is just very specific for the point. So I feel like I'm saying like no to people, or like I ask someone for an interview and they're like, oh, I can't talk about this to this level. I'm like, okay, well, I'll find someone else, or I just won't use your voice. I don't know. So, so it's probably more even now I'm in that scenario than ever.
I love that. Honestly, like, because at the end of the day, it's your call. And I think that's the best because what content is going to be the best. And like when somebody's wasting your time and when they're not. So I love that.
It's just like your time is the most valuable thing. Like that's how I feel. Like we're all busy. Like everyone's busy, man. So it's like I hate wasting my time. So yeah, I feel like I'm better now. That's something I would have struggled with earlier, even maybe like a few years ago. But like I feel like I'm better at pulling the plug on things or recognizing how this scenario is about to play out.
Yeah,
and just be like, all right, well this ain't gonna turn out that well. So let's just move on and adjust.
Yeah, and can you mentioned MYNBC 5? Can you quick touch on like what your day-to-day schedule is like and kind of how it's different from Full Sail or the prior experience that you kind of had?
Yeah, it's different. Oh, like actually, how do I explain it? So I'm the nightside reporter there. So I technically go in at 2:30, but you're kind of doing stuff always beforehand and setting up stories, and then like I working till like 11:45 midnight. Again, it kind of just depends where you are for your story and what your day looks like. But I do the production meeting right when I get in at 2:30, and that's 15 minutes, and then again, most likely I already have the game plan going in, and then it's just like usually reaching out to people for interviews. Hopefully, I've already reached out to some people because that's kind of one thing with the nightside role. It's like you kind of need to reach out to people ahead of time. But yeah, then hopefully you have that window of like, all right, 3 o'clock to 6 something, 7 to get all your interviews, shoot everything you need to do. Luckily, I have a photographer that helps me, so he shoots everything. Just gather all our elements, basically. Eventually, you got to give it like a cutoff point, like usually around 7:30. Like I want to be able to start writing. Hopefully, I can beforehand, but it's like by 7:30, I definitely want to be writing. My story. So, but you got to give yourself that like hard deadline, however your day goes, because oftentimes you're not getting every element you want for your story because you're literally pulling these off like in a few hours. So yeah, then it's just start writing around 7:30, submit it, get it approved. Jake, who's my photographer, edits it. then I'm usually going live at 10 and 11 and airing the story. Oftentimes too, sometimes I'm even in the early shows as well, like 4, 5, and 6, doing early hits if my story is more of like a preview. So like the Nikki Haley thing's a good example. It's like they wanted me to preview. She's about to talk and what the polling numbers are for her. So like, all right, I'm like in the 4, 5, 6. And then again at 10 and 11, doing like live hits. So I don't know. It's just like a full day. It's just like every day is a full day. There's no like rhyme or reason because like every day is so different. But I can guarantee it's just always busy and packed the second you walk in. So I mean that's fun. Your days go by quick. It's tiring. It's exhausting after a while, but it is really fun and it's exciting. And how it's similar and different than the other places is like I am used to like going out to like being out in the field. Technically, like the minor league baseball stuff, I did that even in high school. Technically at NESN, being at like Fenway or TD Garden stuff. So I am experienced being out in the field. But something with news is like it is even more out there because like when you're doing sports, it is more of a controlled environment. Like you're at Fenway, you know you're going to Fenway. Minor league baseball, you know you're going to the ballpark. But like news, you can go like anywhere, and then especially if you're like doing a story where you need to like find people or just going door to door, like you're not in a set location always. So that makes it even harder, honestly. So I definitely find news is probably the hardest thing I've done, by far. And yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy, but like, I don't know. Doing news in Vermont, man, it'll just like it'll teach you a lot. So hopefully it prepares me for whatever the next opportunity is. But yeah, it's been good.
Well, we did have a question kind of along those lines too, and maybe touching with the player interviews and how it overlaps. What's kind of your process, or has been the process for trying to book somebody, or whether it's for an interview that you're doing personally, and then maybe how that compares to setting something up, for the news station. Obviously, it's going to be different when you're running a story versus doing a one-on-one, on your own. But what are kind of the processes for you for those?
I would say actually it is pretty similar for across the board sports, entertainment, news, because it's either one or two things. You're dealing with a media relations / publicist person, or you kind of know the person to some extent, and then they become like a source. And you can just go to them and you get their personal number eventually, and then you bypass all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is the same process for all three industries, like just media as a whole. So yeah, it's a lot of the same that I do. So whether it's cold emailing someone for the first time, obviously the nice thing with news, sometimes, a lot of times, people are reaching out to you rather than always me. Like I have to think of a story every day. So it's like, it is sometimes nice. Like, okay, I'm reading like the pitches that we get in our news tips email. I'm like, all right, this one's decent. Like, hopefully the person left some sort of like phone number. I can reach out to them, or I email them back and go from there. Obviously, if they're reaching out to you, they have an incentive to want to do it. So they're going to be more willing to respond to you quicker. But yeah, honestly, the process is the same across all industries, or across all fields. So that's nice. And that kind of reminds me of like doing the minor league baseball stuff. Even now, it's like, I've been doing this to an extent since like 9th grade. So it's just like, now it's every day. The thing with this job is it's every day, and I have to turn these around quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which I don't always love, but it's the nature of the job. It's like, okay, the second I finish doing an interview, I got to think about writing like right away, or I got to think about the next thing to do. Where before, in everything else I've done, it's like, okay, I get a moment to like breathe or like enjoy the interview, or I just don't have to edit and write it like right away. So it's like, that's the one thing. This one's like really quick, but the process is the same.
Man.
Good. I think that's good insight, for how they compare, and, interesting that they are kind of, similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned like, you have to create a story every day. And let's say, the pitches you receive aren't exactly, what you're looking for. How do you kind of look to make a story? How do you kind of paint the picture of something that, you didn't really know beforehand?
Yeah, definitely. I think you just know like this is helping out as I didn't know it really my first year in Vermont, but now that I've been here for a year, it's like, okay, I know when certain like events are, what, like the legislative session just began in Montpelier here. So like, I know, okay, there's stories related to that. So if I'm not getting good pitches, like I know the nature of what's happening right now in Vermont. There's been a lot of like weather issues. Like we've had some crazy storms, crazy wind storms, like up to like 60, 70 miles per hour, a lot of snow. So, and this is like, we've had a late start to winter here. So this week's been like the first like major snowstorm and just storm as a whole in the last for the season. So I already kind of know like this week's been a lot of storm prep stories, storm coverage day of, and then aftermath storm, the damage that occurred. So you kind of know the nature of, all right, this is what's happening in Vermont right now. Maybe angle and figure out stories along those lines. And however that looks. But I would say that's something that just comes with it over time, and just like knowing your area. And that's why you kind of you definitely need like a year for sure just to know where you are. Because like I never spent any time in Vermont prior to here, so it's like I don't know what all these events or like what it's like here until you're here. So that's what I would say. Like when I don't fully know, I don't get a good pitch, I should say. Like, all right, what's happening in Vermont? Shoot, weather's awful. Probably gonna have to do some sort of storm coverage story, and go from there.
Man, and we touched on a lot of stuff, Tyler, and you've been more than gracious. And I'd like to ask, given all your prior experience, Full Sail, the interviews, MYNBC 5, what's next for Tyler Boronski? What do you have a dream goal or an aspiration, or what do you kind of have lined up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know for sure. I always know like I'm always gonna do like content creation of some sort. I love interviewing people. That's my favorite probably part about what I do in any capacity. So maybe it's TV, maybe it's digital media, maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know necessarily. I just my contract with NBC5 through September, so we'll see from there. But I've never been someone like I need to work for a certain company or whatever. I just like the experiences and like bucket list, like interviewing people. Like I love like someone I looked up to and I can say I interviewed them. Like I want to always have fun with this job. I try to remind myself that now because sometimes like I said, it's a grind sometimes, but like I always want to have fun doing this. So my goals always relate to like experiences and like people to interview one day. And my favorite thing, like my dream, like whoever has my dream job is probably like Sean Evans, who runs that show Hot Ones online.
Questions, even
like,
Hot Wings.
Exactly. Like he has some amazing guests, but like his format is just awesome. Like he accomplishes what you want. He's a good interviewer, so it's already like you feel like you're learning stuff, but the format is so entertaining as well. And it's not too long either. So I think he's probably doing like what my dream job is. So maybe if I ever think of a good idea and pitch it to a company, that could be an avenue. But yeah, I don't know. I always go back to that. I am kind of going with the flow of things, but I feel like in a way I've been doing it for a little bit. So you build your reputation and you got confidence in yourself, and you see how it plays out. But that's definitely, it's just the experiences is like the most important thing for me because I always want to have fun doing this job. And if it gets to a point where it's not fun, then it's probably time to like switch careers.
That's wise advice. Because you're right. If it's not fun, why do it? I mean,
exactly.
Because I think a lot of people out there, including ourselves, like you might be at a desk job that you don't like. You might be doing something that you're just not a fan of, and getting up is whatever. But I think when you find something you love, like you found, it probably just makes your whole life easier, right?
It does. It really does. So like I still feel like ambitious now. And that's why I was saying in the beginning, I was like, I still feel like in a way, like I'm in the beginning of my career. Like I'm just starting still. So like I still feel excited, and I just trying to always look for opportunities that makes me feel that way. Because you're right, like I don't want to feel like it's a drag to go to work or to do something. Like I want to do stuff that I'm excited to do. So hopefully put myself more in more of those positions.
Absolutely. And this one just came to my head. Then we have a couple quick hitters, and we'll let you go. But I know I've mentioned Dan a little bit. I was just wondering, I guess, why haven't you interviewed him yet? Have you talked to him? I feel like he'd be great on your show with you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I know a couple of my other college friends that have podcasts. They interviewed Dan in the past. It's a good question. I don't have an answer for you why I haven't done that yet. So maybe that's something I need to do for sure. And Dan's an actor, man. Dan's an actor, so that fits into my actor narrative as well. Yeah. He's been on how many Adam Sandler movies? Over
20 plus.
Yeah, right? Exactly at this point. So you're right. Maybe that is something to do next.
I don't know, Tyler. I think it'd be electric personally.
It would be fun. It would be fun for sure. Good idea. I like that, Chris. Thank you.
Hey, yes, sir. And if that doesn't work out, you always got Todd Fritz.
Yeah, I can do Fritzy. Yeah. Just walk down the line with all the Danettes. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Then when you get Mario in the back room, then that you got to switch it up.
Absolutely.
So a couple quick hitters for you. Again, you've been more than gracious with your time. We really appreciate it. Looking back, who was, obviously you have so many interviews, but can you name one that sticks out where you think about it now and it just gives you feeling like, man, that was awesome?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of mentioned the Chris Sale one was pretty cool just because the interview was good. I think it was very niche to what the current status of the Red Sox was, but the backstory and the situation with that was because I had to wait it out for a while. Mm-hmm. And when I got him, it was it's just me and him. Fenway was empty. We're just sitting in the Red Sox dugout on a beautiful summer day, looking out at the Green Monster. And that was more of I don't know, just a surreal moment for me. Cause obviously I grew up a Red Sox fan and I was just I can't believe a couple years ago, I was watching the 2018 World Series, on my TV, watching Chris Sale get the final out, striking out Machado. I'm just this is kind of surreal that I'm just sitting in the Red Sox dugout right now. No one else here talking with Chris Sale. So I always just kind of remember that moment. And I think that's why that sticks out to me, even though obviously Chris Sale's had a great career and that's usually a good name for most people. But I think it was just that moment. I was shoot, because you're always on the go. You're always what's next? But I was that moment I had a chance to sit back and take it in. And that's why that kind of always sticks out to me. I'm just dang, this is crazy right now that I'm sitting here doing this. So I don't know. That one probably stands out. One of my favorite experiences, it wasn't in person, but it was on Zoom, was covering the 2020 Team USA men's basketball team when they were in Tokyo. Technically happened 21, but they call it 2020. So that was interviewing all the NBA stars. And I was waking up at 2:30, 3:30, 4:30 in the morning for a month doing that. Some of it actually aired on NESN. And it was and star after star. It was all right, Tatum, Dame Lillard, Draymond, Zach LaVine, Bam, Chris Middleton, whoever was on that team. And it was just back to back to back. And I was doing the girls team as well. So then I was doing Taurasi, I was doing Griner, I was doing Sue Bird, Asia Wilson. So it was the best athletes, best basketball players in the world for a month, every day. So that was cool. That was a cool experience too. But yeah, I don't know. Those are the ones that stand out. And then obviously the Belichick stuff I think is always going to stand out, even though I've never interviewed Belichick in person. So everything I've done with him is Zoom. But I think I haven't really, honestly, besides this week, I haven't really struck out with him ever, surprisingly. I think, like I said, the tone when I ask him questions is important. But I don't know. It's funny with Belichick because when I was in college in that interviewing class, we used to practice as if we were going to interview Bill Belichick after a game. That was our in-class assignment. So we were always in scenarios my teacher would act like Bill Belichick and not give you anything unless you ask a question that kind of forces his hand to have to open up or say something. So, and then a couple years later, I was interviewing Bill for the first time, and I was dang, that's kind of surreal too. So I don't know. I feel like he kind of not likes me, but we had he kind of respected me enough to give me some sort of answers, which I always appreciate. And yeah, I don't know. That one always stands out too, because obviously I'm a Patriots fan. So
Well, when you can make a friend out of Bill Belichick, you can make a friend out of
friendly.
anyone.
I hesitate about friend, but yeah, friendly
Yeah,
enough. Yeah.
right. As long as you're not saying I'm on to Cincinnati to you, I think you're doing just fine.
Yeah. So I lucked out with that. I never got one of those, unfortunately. So yeah.
Oh, and then a couple more quick hitters. If you were to go to dinner, who are 4 people that you would bring with you? It could be anybody.
I'll try to give you a fun answer. Now I won't be like, all right. Even though my family should be the answer, but
Yeah.
like I'll give you a fun one. Dustin Pedroia, just because he was my favorite athlete growing up.
Yeah.
I'll bring Big Poppy along too, because I know Big Poppy's just hilarious, and like
He's
the two of
gonna
them
pull
together
through.
would be super funny.
Mhm.
I'll bring Kevin Hart as for a comedian voice, even though he might talk a little too much, but I do like Kevin Hart a lot, so bring Kevin Hart. And I would bring I'd bring Rondo because I'm a big basketball fan. I like Rondo a lot, and I could talk like in depth about basketball with him. I feel like he would teach me a lot. And like I say, he's one of my favorite athletes too. So I'm touching on the nostalgia. I'm touching on having the fun conversations, but I'm also having the one-on-one conversations as well with someone like Rondo. So those are my 4. It's a weird group, but I'll take it. So
It sounds electric. I mean, Big Poppy and Pedroia are just gonna be poking each other, and you got Kevin Hart there to even things out, and then you got Rondo to be a little more serious, sipping his wine. So
yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. That would be sick. That would be sick for sure.
it sounds awesome. It sounds awesome to me, and I think as well. If you could only listen to one artist for the rest of your life, who would it be?
Shoot. Man, that keeps changing too. I'm one of those people too that also like fluctuates. Like, all right, maybe I'm into rap right now. Maybe I'm into pop.
Sure.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm in a country mood lately. Like weirdly enough. So maybe Morgan Wallen. Like we have to answer that right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'll just go with that. Morgan Wallen. Big fan right now. So
Hey.
Last Night is still stuck in my head. That song Last Night, yeah, it's still on repeat. So I don't know. I'll go with that. Yeah.
Hey, Last Night's an absolute banger. I'm not going to discredit that at all.
Really. So.
And so the final question, who, after doing this interview, it would be in our very first interview, who is somebody that you would like to see on this podcast next?
Someone good you guys can interview, especially I know you're big into autographs, Chris, is get Jay from Mojo Sports, because he's doing a lot of he's branching off from just being like an autograph collector. Now he's doing stuff like I saw he did something with the Mets in the summer. Mm-hmm. Like I know he's connected with Gary Vee as well. Like it looks like he's doing stuff in like the entertainment space and like working with companies, and obviously he's built his own business like around his autograph collection and autograph business. Mm-hmm. So maybe Jay from Mojo Sports would be a good fit for you guys. Yeah, so I would go with that.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. And one last question, because you made me think of it. Are you still collecting at all?
I am not collecting anymore. I really do like collecting. Like I had a lot of fun doing it. I think eventually the reason I stopped, and I probably stopped around like junior or senior high school, is because, the fact I was starting doing the media stuff, I was like, all right, I got to switch over. Like if I want to be like looked at as a professional, like you can't be asking for autographs. So that's mainly why I stopped doing it. But like I had a lot of fun doing it. And I know I probably can't get back into it because I would probably be too addicted to doing it again. And I still like my parents' place. They still have all my autographs. So they have, binders of 8x10s and signed baseballs and anything you can think of, posters, jerseys, like a lot of crap. So I hope to save it all to give to like my kid one day. And then if my kid ever gets into it, I think that's when I could see myself like picking it up again. I think that would be so cool. So it's not like I don't like doing autographs, but I just know if I do it again, like I'll be addicted. And then at this point now, like I do want to like separate that line, like, professional in the media. So don't want to be asking for autographs, but it was a lot of fun. So I definitely enjoyed it.
It's like separating church and state, you got to do it. You got to do it.
You got to do it eventually. So yeah, that's why I made the stop.
Man, Tyler, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate it again. Again, glad to be the first ever guest, and looking forward to following your guys' shows.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.
All right, guys. Cool. Hey,